This is Joanna Lilley. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Since its inception in 1949, Mental Health Awareness Month has been a cornerstone in addressing the challenges faced by millions of Americans living with mental health conditions. Although this month of recognition has been in existence for a while, stigmatization around mental health still exists. Throughout the month of May, we are bringing you episodes from the parent perspective to highlight this special month. Welcome to the Parent Series, brought to you by Success is Subjective.
It's time now for the Success is Subjective podcast. Here is your host and therapeutic consultant for young adults only, Joanna Lilley.
Jenna shares her experience as the parent of a young adult struggling in college in 2021 during the COVID pandemic. Leading up to this, her daughter was seemingly doing well while working part-time and attending an out-of-state university. As her daughter began to emotionally distance herself from family, it was clear that something was off and she was unwell. After receiving care via multiple RTC, PHP, IOP programs for 2 years, they actually ended up meeting with me. They ironically heard about me on Brenda Zane's Hope Stream podcast, which is a resource that you'll hear Jenna talk about. I, Joanna, helped their daughter find a longer-term solution at a transitional living program. While there, her daughter has been working, plans to complete her college degree, and enjoy life experiences using healthy skills. She steadily adapted. Jenna mentions a few other resources that helped her family on their journey, and links will be provided in the podcast show notes. Let's not wait any longer. Here's Jenna. Jenna, thank you for being a guest on the parent series of the Success is Subjective podcast. I'm glad you're here. If you're okay with us jumping right in, I'd love for you to just actually start in and give some backstory of what was going on with your child before even entering into the treatment process.
Sure. Thank you for having me here today. Yes, what was going on was my daughter was in college and was having a difficult time, but I didn't realize how difficult of a time. So from being in a different state, it was definitely a challenge to understand all of everything that was going on in her life at the time.
So if you feel comfortable, anything specifically that kind of led to or kind of an uptick of behaviors or encounters or experiences? Because when I say entering, quote unquote, entering into the treatment process or journey, that's so vague in what it, open to interpretation. We could be talking about outpatient supports. We could be talking about residential programming to inpatient hospitalization on the complete opposite end of that treatment kind of continuum. So give us a little bit of more insight into what were the struggles that your daughter specifically had, and maybe even use that as a segue into kind of as a parent, like you said, we didn't realize how much how much our child was struggling. We didn't realize the extent of it. Tell us a little bit about when that kind of aha moment happened for you and how you felt.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So it was clear to me that, call it, the wheels were falling off the bus or the train when our communication pattern was not typical. And I noticed our daughter was just not as responsive and or calling at odd times of the day or evening. So I picked up a cue that things were not going well. So I had to fly up to the school that she was at, and I was in complete shock when I arrived to find her in her apartment, clearly in distress. I think about how I felt when I saw her and how anxious and confused I was. I could just imagine how she was feeling to have me see her in such distress, which did lead to a hospitalization. So yeah, that was, I guess, the most extreme of sorts when it does come to a mental health crisis.
Oh, totally. Well, and thank you for sharing that too. Like you said, it was almost like there were clues that you were kind of picking up on from afar, and it wasn't until you were physically in the same space as her that you realized, oh, wow, there's a lot. We're in a bad spot. If you felt comfortable also sharing, was there a particular fear that you were experiencing at this point too? And a lot goes into a hospitalization that can also be again, kind of drumming up a lot of different emotions for a parent and for the young adult. So what was that bringing up for you?
Yeah. interesting that you asked that too, because I could feel it in my body as I'm talking now. And this was over 3 years ago. But really, I just felt lost. I felt like it was chaos. And I wasn't accustomed to this because life had been fairly predictable up to this point. And then again, I was reflecting not only on how was I feeling, but how must she have been feeling. And if I was so, I don't know, afraid and anxious, I was really trying to reflect how she must feel with all this chaos going on around her, both physically and mentally. So I knew that if she picked up on my anxiety and sadness that I was feeling at the time in this chaos, that she would lose hope. So I knew it was important for me to dig deep, think about how my mom might have handled a moment like this in my life. And I thought better to be calm and confident that we would navigate this together. So,
yeah. Way to channel your mom in that moment to provide that sense of hope for your daughter. So I'm asking this next question kind of about the treatment experience, not necessarily trying to focus on the specific programs or kind of the continuum of care per se, but just more about the experience. From the parent perspective, how was that kind of you being in that parallel role through that treatment experience? And then same for that experience for your child. So if you feel comfortable answering that question, let's roll into that.
Sure. Okay. So yeah, the experience again, I was quite lost, frankly. I knew about hospitalization for physical ailments, but certainly not for a mental health crisis. And I do remember feeling, again, I'll talk from my perspective and then what I perceive to be my daughter's, feeling frustrated. HIPAA laws don't allow you to really get in there and advocate for your child. Luckily, I met some nurses along the way who advised that while they couldn't share information with me, that I could share information with them. So I did the very best I could in that situation. And then for our daughter, I think the same was just everything was so difficult in understanding why was she there and what happened to cause this. So hospitalization is one thing, and then residential treatment is another. Again, had no idea that various programs were out there. It was luckily some helpful nurses guiding me along the way and introducing me to programs like NAMI, which initially I didn't even know what to do with that because I wasn't sure what was going on with our daughter. So eventually I caught up to NAMI and all the benefits that NAMI in different counties provides and the various resources. So yeah, it was very opaque. And eventually we got to a place where we were learning along the way together as trust was building in our relationship.
Oh, that's good to hear. Well, and you kind of just alluded to one of the other typical questions that I ask parents is like during that treatment process, whether it's like pre-hospitalization, pre-residential, or whatever, being connected to resources. Because like you said, as a parent, a lot of times we're all of a sudden thrust into an experience that we are like not educated in or not familiar with. And so it can feel extremely overwhelming. And like you said, nail on the head, the mental health treatment space can be very opaque in terms of recommendations or just the typical timeline, you name it. So if there are any other recommendations other than NAMI that you would feel comfortable kind of sharing that maybe you leaned into as a parent while your daughter was kind of going through that treatment process, what were some of those resources that you leaned on?
Yeah. Well, I love to listen to podcasts. So I started listening to a lot of podcasts and I started to connect some dots about the various resources that were out there. But honestly, I hadn't heard of like therapeutic consulting until about 2 years into the process. And, I don't kick myself, but I was like, why didn't somebody talk to me about this early on, whether it was through a hospitalization or the residential treatment? You in particular are a gem, and there's others out there as well, other resources like you. So I just felt like our world opened up, the world of possibilities, where we felt like there were only limited options to continue in the therapeutic process for our daughter. And so that's one. Therapeutic consultants, huge, or educational consultants. The other that I've learned about recently that I'm participating in through a class is the CMC. It's a class that I'm taking called Invitation to Change. And it's more about that inviting conversation and way to connect with our loved ones who might be either in crisis or struggling with substance abuse or mental health concerns as well. So
both great resources. In addition to NAMI too, like you said, at first you were like, what am I supposed to be doing with this? But then obviously later down the line, when it becomes a little bit more comfortable and familiar and you can navigate it, especially in your local region, there's a lot of resources that could be beneficial for you. Okay, 2 more questions. And then I just appreciate you taking the time. I think that's fantastic. And I'll also just say, quick side note, we'll make sure that we actually include the link for the CMC invitation to change class or coursework. So anybody that's listening that might be curious or just kind of interested in learning more, we'll make sure that we link that in the show notes for this episode. So as a parent, we talk about wanting success for our children when they grow up. And then you kind of started this interview by saying, literally, my life was, it was not simple, but I knew what to expect, right? Like it was just chugging along until all of a sudden something significant enough kind of uprooted me to the point where I needed to lean on a lot of resources because now all of a sudden we have a new trajectory. So my question, kind of bringing that together, what does success look like now for your daughter from your perspective as a parent?
That's a great question. So I'm happy to say, she's getting really close to completing a long-term therapeutic program, which began last year. And my idea of success for her will see her living independently, one, finding her inner peace, and really ways to be patient with herself when she's faced with bad days. She has really good insight and openly shares with me that this idea of, there's going to be good days and there's going to be bad days, but I'm learning how to deal with my bad days. And she's turning to healthy coping skills, which makes me smile. She's shared with me recently she plans to finish college in the coming year and find part-time work while she's going to college and maybe something a little more meaningful in her area of study, which is psychology. She'd love to travel with friends and potentially work, down the road as a therapist or like a peer support specialist. Another idea that is in my mind and my hope for her is that she accepts the connection between sobriety and her mental well-being, because I see that being a continuation of her recovery that will bring her the peace that she's seeking, because the world's quite challenging and a lot more challenging than we collectively expected, when she first joined our family.
Well, thank you for that. Last question is kind of, as we've been going through this interview, I think that some of the experiences some of the personal points for you during this journey and just insights about your perspective kind of through this process is advice in itself inherently for some parents, right? Or it's just a moment of solidarity of like, that's me, I was in that moment. But my last question really is getting to if there's anything else that you feel like would be really beneficial, right? Advice or imparting words or, something you wish that you had done differently, something along those lines to share to other parents that are in this process right now, listening to this episode, really trying to glean some empathy, some support, some guidance. What would you additionally provide?
Yeah. Well, I think the connection with family is key. My husband and I attend a weekly family meeting through a program that's offered through the county that we live in. So I think connecting with other families is really important. NAMI, again, I'm going to say shout out to NAMI, and really educate yourself. I've been digging really deep to make sure I could be the best parent I could be. Again, we made mention of the CMC, the Invitation to Change class. That's opened my eyes to a lot of possibilities. 2 more things I want to say. Connecting with your loved one. My daughter and I have such a great relationship, and we're very open and honest with each other. And it really leaves us coming back for more, as worried and concerned as we both were, our whole family was early on in this journey. I'm so pleased to say, we're building an adult relationship, and we believe that we're on this journey together of healing. That mainly captures everything that's been on my mind about this. Oh, I'm going to say one more thing. taking care of myself. Like I really, for many years, I take care of myself by exercising, walking daily, listening to music and podcasts. I didn't let any of that stop. I continued to invest in myself, which I think really grounded me in this experience to be the best parent I could be for my daughter.
That's so important, right? Like, great way to drop the mic right at the end, because it's so easy for a parent to really get kind of sucked into all of those emotions, doing the kind of solution focused work, researching programs, whatever it is that they need. But what happens kind of as a byproduct is we lose some of those things that we were doing to keep ourselves grounded or okay, or in a place where we were not constantly activated emotionally. And so what a bittersweet reminder to make sure at the very end that we're still taking care of ourselves.
Yes.
Jenna, thank you again for being a guest on the podcast. Thanks again for taking the time to share a little bit of your story and your daughter's story, and keep listening to those podcasts.
I will. Thank you, Joanna. Thanks for all the connections you made for our family. I really appreciate you.
That's it for this week's Success is Subjective episode. We want to thank our guest for joining Joanna on the show this week and for being willing to share your journey. This podcast would not exist if it weren't for people such as yourself. Stay tuned for our next episode, where you can bet it'll be another amazing human sharing their personal story with the world. Make sure you check out the show notes, where you will find contact information, website details, and all social media for our guest. Put a face with a voice by accessing their interview on the newly formed successissubjective.org website. If you are interested in being a guest on the podcast, you can email Joanna at joanna@successissubjective.org. Be sure to check out the collegealternative.org and lilyconsulting.com websites for additional resources outside of podcasting. If you are listening to the show on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe to the show. And while you're at it, feel free to leave a review. You can also download to listen to the Success is Subjective podcast on other popular podcast apps, such as Audible, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio. Last but not least, Success is Subjective is listener-supported, made possible by our team and by you. You can support this podcast by joining the Patreon community at patreon.com/successissubjective. Thank you for tuning in, and remember, there is no single path through life. Success is what you make it.
Do you have a teenager or young adult who seems to have lost their way? Maybe they need help navigating adolescence, adulthood, and decisions surrounding higher education. Or maybe they have become withdrawn, their grades are slipping, or they are flat out living a reckless lifestyle, and you're concerned about their health and well-being. If this describes what your teen or young adult is facing, a therapeutic consultant may be able to help. Mental health, addiction recovery, and higher education can all be equally expensive. While information is everywhere, how do you know what option is the best one for your family? Some parents have the time to research and navigate this on their own. Some don't. If the latter applies to you, enter therapeutic consultants. Therapeutic consultants, like Joanna, listen to your family's specific needs and advocate on behalf of your loved one. TCs will research therapeutic resources, recommend treatment programs, and assist during adulthood transitions. Not being affiliated with any program, their support is completely objective and catered toward the best interest of each unique family. To find a qualified therapeutic consultant to work with, check out TCA, also known as the Therapeutic Consulting Association. Their website is therapeuticconsulting.org, all one word. Again, that's therapeuticconsulting.org. Then click the Find a Pro tab up at the top.